dedicating today's learning to our dear friend Bryna Astor, who was a very beloved part of the shiur. She added so much, and we miss her already. And we miss you, and we know you're here with us. And today's shiur is going to be on the rom-com of Yitzchak and Rivka's meeting, their love story, how they fell in love, and what we can learn in our lives. Really cool, powerful tools to create an everlasting love through learning about the love of Yitzchak and Rivka. Let's dive right in. So, a summary: the parsha had three main stories: the passing of Sarah and her burial in Marisat Machpelah, the main part of the parsha, which is the shidduch rom-com of Yitzchak and Rivka, and then the ending where Avram Avinu is buried. So we're going to be focusing on part two. So the story, just to put it, I love to frame the relook at the Torah in modern day eyes as the best screenplay for the best Netflix rom-com special. It's amazing. I think Yitzchak is the sole heir of a billionaire. So he's a billionaire heir, best bachelor, most suitable bachelor around, and they're finding him a wife. And how do they find him a wife? They send their servant with 10 camels full of everything a girl can dream of. Every jewelry and possession and clothing and whatever a girl could ever want. They send on 10 camels, and he comes and he makes a deal with Hashem. He says, how am I going to find the right wife? Who am I going to choose? Avram sends him to Aram Naharaim, to a place full of depravity, where people are so corrupt that the commentaries, the Chamim, tell us that it was a miracle that Rivka was still a virgin at 3 years old, because there was almost no 3-year-old virgins then at the time, which is why they had to snatch her the day she was 3 years old and not a day later, which is why Hashem made a miracle. It says Eliezer came and left the same day, even though it was a journey of at least a few days. And he arrives there and he says to Hashem, how will I know who's the right one? But why does Avram send him there? Because there he knows he has relatives and he wants someone at least somewhat related to him. He gets there and he says to Hashem, whoever is kind, whoever will offer, whoever I ask for water and will give me water, I'll know she's kind and she'll be a fitting wife for him. Rivka just then is the water. So paint it. Yitzchak's a billionaire heir to a big, beautiful family. Rivka is born to she's an orphan. Her mother passed away. She is the slave of her family. She's 3 years old and getting the water, schlepping all the water back from the well for her family, being sent away on her own, even though who knows what can happen to her. So she does not have the best life. And she is coming to the well just at that moment, right? In this moment of this scene, picture the scene, and she approaches Eliezer and says, I see you look so thirsty. I want to give you water and your camels. And she goes back and forth, and the water comes up to greet her, and he sees this girl is special. And she says, why don't you come to my house and stay with us? And he says, listen, I have this perfect guy for you. He's a billionaire. What's there more to say? Rivka was, even if she, first of all, the verses don't tell us she was 3. There's different opinions about she was 3, but if she was 3, she was very mature. They said, when Eliezer said he wants Rivka to marry Yitzchak, this billionaire, they say, let's ask Rivka what her opinion is. And she says, I'm going, whether you let me or not, I'm going with this man. And I love this story. So he gives her nose rings and bracelets and jewelry and necklaces, and he adorns her, and it's this climax of the moment. And then he puts her on a camel, and he brings her back to Canaan. And what happens at that moment? Yitzchak, the billionaire, is hanging out in the fields. He's davening to Hashem, and suddenly he sees camels coming towards him. In this story, this rom-com, the main supporting actors here are camels. Camels are mentioned no less than 16 times in this week's parsha. And just a little bit like a background, the Torah, we learn, is very minimal in what it tells us. Avram's entire life until he's 75, not even a verse about it in the Torah. Avram discovering Hashem, breaking the idols, not a word about it in the Torah. It's hinted to in the word or kazdim. But yet the Torah gives 57 psukim of the Torah just to the shidduch story of how the story of Eliezer, the servant of Eliezer, finding a wife for Yitzchak. So obviously there is a lot of, the Torah is intending to give us messages about what we look for and how to find the right shidduch and what is a secret to everlasting love, specifically from all the avos, from Yitzchak and Rivka. We have the most about it. So we learn from this marriage, we're going to learn the most about how to make a marriage last and how to make love last forever. So that was just the background. So going back to the story, the moment, this key moment, I think, is the climax of the rom-com, is when Yitzchak is in the fields, right, praying and davening, and he sees camels. It doesn't say he sees Rivka, it says he sees the camels coming. There's a lot of Kabbalah about the spirituality of camels and why camels are featured so much in this parsha. The giving the camels water, the camels coming, bearing the gifts, the significance of telling us so many times. And then it says Rivka's on the camel, and what is she? She sees Yitzchak. She is shocked at his beauty and his demeanor and his majestic presence. What happens? She first covers her face because she's so like in awe of him, and and then she falls off her camel that moment. So I feel like that was like the makeup of just like the perfect rom-com. She falls off her camel, and Yitzchak immediately proposes to her, but they don't get married. They don't consummate the relationship until she's much older and ready for that. If she was, according to the opinions that say she was 3, and it says, this is the verse I mentioned to you before. Ha'ola bayaviyaha, Ha'olas, he marries her and he brings her into his tent. And behold, she is his mother, Sarah Imo. It's like 40 in perfection, right? Every man wants to marry a woman who will nurture him and replace that soul, give him the food, make him the food he likes, and give him that need for nurturing and care. I mean, obviously, it's much deeper than that. We learn from Rashi. What does it mean that she entered his tent and behold, she is his mother? She becomes his mother. She embodies all of the good values all the good virtues that Sarah had. His mother was passed, and it says she comforts him, and he is comforted for the passing of his mother. She comforts him, and all of the values that Sarah had and the virtues, which were the lighting the Shabbat candles that stayed lit from week to week, and the challah that stayed fresh from week to week, and then the cloud of Hashem's presence from Tara, from purity, from Taras, from Nida. All of those came back the minute she entered his tent. So she filled that void, or that Sarah left, and comforted him. It is such a beautiful story. And then it says, "Vayaven," he loved her, and this is the first place in the Torah that the word love is said between a husband and a wife, between a man and a woman. It says. So the verse in the Torah is, Vayiviyaha Yitzchak, and Yitzchak took her Ha'ola Sarah Imo into the tent of Sarah. She is Sarah's mother. Vayikach es Rivka, and he took Rivka, V'tzhilo le'isha, and she became his wife. Vayi'aveh, and he loved her. Vayinachem Yitzchak achra Imo, and he was comforted after the passing of his mother. What a beautiful verse. And they lived happily ever after. There's even more to the story. The story continues, and we'll see later that they lead a very joyful life. And so even though we know that Adam and Chava obviously loved each other, because it says, but it doesn't use the word Ava there. It uses the word Yadas Chava. He knew her intimately, but we know that there was love there. And we know that Avram and Sarah loved each other because he mourned for her and sang the Eishes Chayil to her, and he mourned for her many months, and he hid her in a box, and he did so much to protect her. But here's the first time the Torah tells us love. So obviously there is profound meaning to us on what true love is and how to sustain love throughout a very long marriage. And Yitzchak and Rivka lived their entire life with love, and we learn something very deep from them. Later on in their life, we have another mention of their love when they are taken, when there is the echo, the repetition of the story repeats itself, where there's also a hunger, and they have to go down to Gerar. I think that was last week. Gerar was last week. They have to go down, and Avimelech, where are they? In Beersheba? No. They go down somewhere. Avimelech is the king, and they again say, she is my sister. And Avimelech is like, cool, she's gorgeous, I want her. And he looks out the window one day, and in the afternoon, and he sees the Yitzchak mitzachek is Rivka. Yitzchak is making her laugh, and he says, you're married. What do you mean? The Gemara says, what do you mean? They're laughing together. Why can't they be siblings? And he says, Yitzchak mitzachek, making her laugh, is a euphemism for sexuality. They were being physically intimate in some way, and in a way that husband and wife do. They were doing something that brothers and sisters do not do, but the term used for it was mitzachek. Hold that thought. We're going to get to it later. So this is like the most beautiful rom-com. Now we're going to get to what is the secret to this marriage, to this everlasting love, and we're going to do this by examining the 3 avos, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the 3 which represent to us 3 different types of stages of love and marriage. We have Gemara Brachos, and I'll read it to you. I brought it to you in the source as well. Gemara Brachos 26b Chavav Bes says the following. It's the last source I brought to you. It's the Gemara about how the 3 avos each established each of the 3 tefillot. Are you familiar with that? How Avram established Shachris, Yitzchak established Mincha, and we're going to learn something so profound for our love life from that. So bear with me. The Gemara says the following. Itmar, it is stated, Rabbi Yaisi, Rabbi Chanina, Rabbi Yaisi, the son of Rabbi Chanina, says, Tfilos avam tiknum. The tfilos, where do we have the practice of praying 3 times a day? From our avos. Before that, they didn't have that. Avram tikain tfilas shachris. Avram established shachris, morning prayer, like it says, Vayashkim Avram baboker, ela makom asher amacham. Avram rose early in the morning to the place he stood before Hashem, and Amida, standing, is tefillah. Amidah is prayer. Number 2, I'm skipping a little bit. Vein Amida ela tefillah, etc., etc. Number 2, Yitzchak tikein tfilat mincha. Yitzchak established the afternoon prayer. Shenemar, like it says, Vayetze Yitzchak lasuach basada lifnos erev. This is right before he meets Rivka. He meets his beloved. It says Yitzchak went to speak lasuach, to have a discussion with God in the field. Lifnot erev, before evening, right before the evening in the afternoon. In late afternoon, that's when we know mincha is late afternoon, and that's what mincha is, talking to Hashem, having an offering of having a conversation with Hashem. The ein sicha ela tefillah, and then we fast forward in Yaakov. What does Yaakov have to do with Ma'ariv? It says, Vayivka b'makom vayalen sham. That in the evening, when Yaakov came to the place where he had the dream with the ladder, he says he entered that place, vayalen sham ein pigia el lashon tefillah, and it brings down why tifka is tefillah. So over there we see that Yaakov in the evening established. Now, this goes into something really deep. There's 3 parallels to this. We learned that it wasn't coincidental that Yaakov, that Abraham established Shachris, Yitzchak established Mincha, and Yaakov established Ma'ariv. It actually was the essence of who they were. Avram was the early bird. He was a morning person. Avram's entire life was about newness. What is the morning? Morning is freshness, new opportunities, the birth of something new. That was who Avram was, the first Jew, the first person to discover Hashem. Avram's whole life is about the first father of Am Yisrael. He was the morning person, the eternal, and that's why for him, Shacharis was praising Hashem in the morning, praising Hashem with newness, established everything as brand new. That's Avraham's persona. That's who Avram is, Chesed. That's Avram's whole existence. Then we're going to skip to Yaakov, and we're going to get back to Yitzchak because that's what we're focusing on now. Then we have Yaakov. Yaakov is the night owl. Yaakov's entire life happens at night. Night is darkness. Night is mystery, it's drama, it's tension. It's all that, the tension that happens, the struggle and the challenges. Yaakov's entire being, I'll read to you he embodies the night of Judaism. So Avram embodies the morning of Judaism, the freshness, the beginnings, the Chadash. Avram and Yaakov embodies the night, the mystery and drama. Many times it says that Yaakov's mission was done at night. For example, when it says Yaakov lay down and had a dream at night. Yaakov's pivotal moment came when he had a dream at night. Later on it says that Yaakov, his battle where he got his name Yaakov from Yisrael, from Yaakov, was when he fought the angel the whole night, and as soon as it was morning, the angel left. His whole mission was at night. Not only that, what's amazing is when Yaakov talks to Lavan about payment, he says, I worked for you for 20 years, scorching sun and frost, by night, and I didn't sleep at night. So he worked by the day for him, and by night I didn't sleep. Why? He was toiling in Torah. His avoda was at night. Yaakov didn't sleep at night. He was a night owl. He was his whole avoda was the galus. He was the night of Judaism. He represented working in the darkness. While Yitzchak and Avram and Yitzchak remained in Eretz Yisrael, Avram went down to Haran. He went down into the darkness, into the challenge, into the darkness, and served Hashem there. So it was so fitting that he says to Hashem, Ma'ariv. That's what he established Ma'ariv. Waking up at night to remember to call out to Hashem where it's dark. Whenever it says, seek Hashem where it's dark and he will find him. And Yaakov embodied that, finding Hashem specifically in the struggles and challenges of his life. And Yaakov's whole life was full of drama and mystery and challenge, and marrying one wife and then finding out it was the other one. There was all the mystery and romance, and that's who Yaakov's whole being is. Also, Yaakov, when Lavan chased him, that was at night, and he had that confrontation with Lavan. All of Yaakov's pivotal moments in life happened in the night, because Yaakov is the night, embodies the night of Judaism. And now we come to Yitzchak. Yitzchak is the afternoon of Judaism. What is the afternoon, right? We have an early bird and a night owl. What do we have for the afternoon? Do you have anything? Anything? Yes, afternoon seems like a big gap between morning and afternoon where the mundane falls in, right? And you might see the afternoon as a bland, long stretch of time of life that's not exciting, right? The freshness and the newness is exciting, and the drama and mystery and passion that happens at night. And in between, it's just a long stretch of empty desert, right? That's the boring, it's more of the boring parts of life. And this is Yitzchak's entire life. Well, Avram discovered and traveled from one place to another, and Yaakov traveled down to Haran and then traveled to Hebron and went everywhere. Yitzchak stayed in pretty much one place his entire life. It was like the mincha. You stay in your place, you're at work or you're home, you're doing your thing, the day-to-day routine. Yitzchak's whole life from the Kedah, the rest of his life, what do we know about the rest of his life in this week's Parsha? He dug wells. And we're going to learn what that means. And by the way, going back to the rom-com, we see that of the whole, my perspective, looking at the Torah as this like romantic comedy or a romantic story, all of the avos, or many of the avos it's brought down, met their beloved by a well. And we're going to save that thought, and later we're going to discuss what the significance of meeting someone at a well. Yitzchak, Rivka was discovered at a well. Yaakov and Rachel fell in love at a well. Moshe met Zipporah at a well. And there's a lot of depth to that. And now Yitzchak's whole life is about digging wells. His entire life, all we know is that he went and dug wells, and then they were stuffed up by Plishtim. Then he dug more wells, and then those were stuffed up, and he dug more wells. Right? That was Yitzchak's whole life, digging wells. What does that even mean? What does that tell us? We'll hold that thought. So Avram fathered a nation, and he traveled from one place to another, and he almost got killed. Yaakov's life is chased by his brother. He falls in love with a woman. Then falls in love with another woman, and he fathers 12 children. His favorite son disappears for 20 years. He goes to Mitzrayim. He finds out his son is the king. So much intensity, right, and challenge and drama. And Yitzchak's life is digging wells. And so on a Kabbalistic level, as on a side note, we learned that digging wells, that Avram brought tons of light into the world, and chesed is the pouring of light, but chesed without something to contain that light can cause a Yishmael, can cause an overwhelmingness of light can feel like the Mabul. It can be a Mabul. And so Yitzchak's life was digging the wells to create the physical vessels to contain those brachos. So it's about the balance of chesed and gvura, needing to create a physical vessel to contain all of that light that Avram brought in the world. That was just on a side note of what Yitzchak's mission was of digging wells, but we're going to bring it into love. So now we're going to learn so Yitzchak's mincha, and that's what mincha is. Yitzchak is saying that the bulk of our life is not in the morning and fresh new things, right? We don't have that much, we don't have that much drama in our lives. That's a very small part. Most of our life is the day-to-day routine. The same thing that happens in the mincha time, between the morning and the afternoon, is the majority of our lives. The night we're mostly sleeping. The morning is very brief and it fades. And then we have the afternoon, and that's what we're left with. And Yitzchak established a mincha to remember that in this normal routine, in this day-to-day routine, we stop to bring Hashem in and to connect with Hashem specifically in the day-to-day. Specifically, Hashem established that Sheishes Yamim Ta'avod, that we serve Hashem mostly in the day-to-day of mundane work. And then Shabbos is only one day a week, because Hashem could have made it the other way, on that Shabbos we connect for 6 days, and we only have one day of work. But Hashem specifically wanted that we find Hashem and find the meaning and find the connection in the day-to-day regular work of a regular person, of our day-to-day mundane activities. That's where we meet Hashem the most, and that's where we have the deepest connection, or the main purpose of our existence is to bring Hashem and to find purpose and meaning in the regular, in the day-to-day, to find beauty in the sunset that happens every single day and not to take it for granted, to see the beauty in the day-to-day of our life and to appreciate what we have while we have it, right? And when we don't have it, suddenly we're like, wait, I missed that. Just the sitting. I remember when I made Aliyah, and it was so overwhelming. And I went to bring someone a cake, and they were just sitting in the afternoon just eating tuna sandwiches, and I started to cry. And I was like, I just want to sit with my family and have tuna sandwiches. I didn't have that for so long. We were just chasing our own tails. We weren't breathing, and I was literally sobbing. And my husband's like, okay, we'll do that. So we all sat down and had sandwiches on a Friday afternoon, and I was so overjoyed. Literally, I was like just so happy. I'm like, I just want to appreciate the little things that you take for granted, that when you don't have it, you realize how beautiful those little moments are that you have, the mundane and day-to-day, and to catch that. And that's what Yitzchak embodied. And now we're going to bring that into into our love life, into a marriage. Really, these 3 stages of morning, afternoon, and evening represent 3 stages of falling in love. The first stage is the honeymoon phase, is the morning stage, the beginning, when everything is brand new, right? Your first date, your first I love you, your first kiss, your first engagement, everything is new, the honeymoon stage. And the only problem with that is that it's a honeymoon. It doesn't last forever, or else it wouldn't be a honeymoon stage, it would be a forever stage. That newness can only be new once. So the morning can only be fresh once. And so that we get that pleasure and that high and that joy in that first of everything, in that first falling in love stage. But the thing is that always fades, because it's meant to fade, and that's what makes it so special, that it's new and fresh. And so that part of relationship, if people hold on to that and only want the relationship to always stay fresh and new, the issue is that that's what the celebrity lifestyle is, that I have this new relationship, I'm in love, and then when that fades, I think something's wrong with my relationship, so I look for a new person for that high. The problem is that's nothing wrong with your relationship if that fades. It's supposed to. That's the whole point of it. It's the beginning, it's the morning, and it's supposed to become afternoon. And then we have this other part of our love life, our love. Every love story has its nights, its drama, the tension, that passion that happens specifically at night. What does that mean? Night, whenever there's tension or struggle or distance, we have this passion and that yearning and longing, or that eroticism, the lust, all the mystery and drama of our marriage, of our love life, that happens when there's tension, or when someone is long distance, or when you're nida, right? In that space of distance, there's tension and that challenge that brings that more of the passion, the allure. And that's that night part of marriage. And again, that doesn't last forever. Even if someone does have an intense marriage, that's not the majority of your relationship, especially if you as back to Hashem, are raising or trying to raise a family or trying to make a living. You can't have drama and passion all the time, because then you can't live a life. It's not sustainable. So even it dims over time, the night passion. Why does it dim? Because as you learn to communicate better, there's less of the arguing, and then there's less of that breakup and the makeup you're longing back for each other. And as we grow and mature and love each other so much, love, actually was hearing this recently from Esther Pearl, who is the author of Mating in Captivity, and she has this amazing theory that love and eroticism are opposites. They cancel each other out. Eroticism, or like lust, it comes from distant, from wanting something, and love is the verb of having. I have you, I have. And so when you have, you can't want because I have you. So the more time you spend together in life, the more we're together and spending so much time together and learning each other and becoming, the more there is, the greater the love and intimacy, the less lust and eroticism there is, because I have you more, so I can't want you if you're so close. So the greater the closeness, the less naturally the eroticism and lust will fade. And she has amazing suggestions, by the way. I recommend listening to her. She's also a Holocaust survivor who speaks about like thriving, growing up in a community of Holocaust survivors. And she also speaks about like how to how in this generation we want both. We want to have love, which cancels out familiarity and intimacy and closeness, which cancels out eroticism. And she has really beautiful suggestions on how to have both. The best one that she doesn't say is the Torah's nida, and when the nida affords us to not have the person for 2 weeks, to have that distance, to create the breeding ground for more eroticism and want and desire, but love cancels out desire. So she has really good ideas for people who are married a long time, who love each other so much, but then that desire, the passion, that nighttime, the distance and that separation of night is not there, and how to reintroduce lust or want even when there's so much love. And so she has great tips. I recommend reading or listening to her talks. And that was a side note. But going back to, so what are we supposed to do now? What are we left with if the morning and the newness of a relationship, the honeymoon, automatically is meant to fade out, and the drama dims, and it's even if there are many couples or some couples that have intensity and want for their whole life, it's only a small percentage of their life, right? It's only a very small part of their life. The majority of your life together of marriage is the afternoon of marriage. It's the day-to-day living together, creating a life together. And the secret to Yitzchak, the secret to creating a sustaining love forever and having a loving marriage that's forever, like Yitzchak and Rivka, is by doing what Yitzchak did. It's by bringing mincha. It's by finding the beauty and finding the passion in the day-to-day moments. It's by bringing depth, by digging wells. So I'll get to digging wells in a moment, but it's by recognizing that the true love and the real passion and finding the beauty and the playfulness in the day-to-day. And one of the things Esther Perl talks about is playing together. Playing meaning being explorative and doing new things and going on walks and changing your scenery and laughing together. And that brings that newness into the day-to-day. And you don't need to go somewhere new to do that. You can bring it into the regular mundane. You can see couples in a grocery store being so in love, doing the most mundane thing. You could be having going on your daily walk and enjoying it in the same day-to-day things that you do over and over again, right? You can have the grocery store could be the most fun, playful thing if you enjoy play. And that's what gets to me. That's what Avimelech, why the Torah tells us Avimelech looked out in the afternoon. Again, the afternoon meaning that in the day-to-day things, what did he see Yitzchak and Rivka doing in the day-to-day? Mitzachek is Rivka. They were laughing together. And that's so beautiful. That's where we learned that the euphemism for sexuality, one of the places where it says in the Gemara that we learned that sexuality could also be referred to as laughing together. And that's literally, by the way, this is Torah's wisdom from thousands of years ago. And Esther Perl's novel, crazy and bestseller book is saying what the Torah said, that the way to have love, have that passion and want, even in a love that is so secure and intimate and loving, is by introducing playfulness, by doing exactly what Yitzchak did. And that's what Avimelech saw Yitzchak doing, being playful and enjoying and laughing and appreciating the day-to-day moments in the afternoon, the moments that you have every single day with each other that seem like it's so mundane. I want that newness that I had in the beginning. I want the passion. Let's fight, right? Let's have the distance. No, you could have so much laughter and joy and playfulness and want and newness even in the day-to-day. You could be doing the same thing. And that was what made me think so much of Brina, our friend, and Chaim. Like they were married for 37 years, and what Chaim said at the funeral was, it wasn't enough. They did they had almost the same routine, and it wasn't enough. They couldn't get enough of each other. And what I've heard from so many people is that we don't know what Brina passed away from. The doctors still don't know, but what we do know is that the minute that her husband was taken to a senior home, she said, I don't want to live without him by my side. And that's what the Rebbe Lubavitch, there's a beautiful story. I'm going to end off with this story. One of my favorite stories, I know I've said it before, the Rebbe was meeting with a young girl, Chana Sharsin, who lost her father, and she had a very close relationship with the Rebbe, and she was dating, and she was in the Parsha, in this part, right? I always say dating is called in the Parsha. If it was a Parsha, it would be this Parsha of dating, because this is the Parsha of dating. She was in the Parsha, and she was meeting with the Rebbe, and the Rebbe was saying, so what's with dating? She said, I haven't met anyone suitable. And so the Rebbe brought up a boy's name. So what about that boy? And she froze, because she had dated that boy, and she had no clue the Rebbe knew. So she said, she told the Rebbe why she didn't think why he wasn't for her. The Rebbe said, another boy. And again, she was like, that's also a boy I dated. And she's freaking out. And each time, the Rebbe would bring up more names of boys she dated, and she would find a reason why each one wasn't good for her. And I'm going to read you, her name was Hannah Sharfstein, and she says this story. And I'll read you her exact words. It is such a cute story. She says, and then as a father, as a daughter, the Rebbe began to explain to me the meaning of real love. He chuckled lightly and told me that I'm reading too many books. And again, she was like, how does the Rebbe know? I do read too many new books. How does he know? But no, he did. Love, he explained to me, is not that which is portrayed in romantic novels. It isn't that overwhelming, blinding emotion that's portrayed in a romance. Those books do not portray real life, he said. It's a fantasy world, a make-believe world with made-up emotions. Fiction is just that, fiction, but real life is different. And then as a father to a daughter, he began to explain to me the meaning of real love. Love, he told me, is an emotion that increases in strength throughout life. It's sharing and caring and respecting one another. It's building a life together, a unit, a family, and home. The love that you feel as a young bride, continued, is only the beginning of real love. It's through, right? You think that like this is never going to get better than this. And I always tell young brides, you're not going to believe it. When you live with somebody and you really love them, you're like, how do we love each other more? Every you're like, and our love gets bigger and bigger because it is through the small, everyday acts. These are the words of the Rebbe, of living together, that love flourishes and grows. That was Yitzchak's mincha prayer, that through the afternoon of love, the small everyday things that seem too boring to talk about, right? There's no morning, all night, but it's just what happens in the middle of the drama and the mystery and the freshness. No, that is where the real thing happens. That's where the real magic happens. The real love that you have grows through everyday living together. And then this is my favorite words, the Rebbe. And so the Rebbe continued, the love that you feel after 5 or 10 years is a gradual strengthening of bonds. As two lives unite to form one, with time, one reaches a point where each partner feels a part of each other, where each partner can no longer visualize a life without his mate by his side. You feel so one, and that was Brina. She couldn't, when her husband was taken, she's like, I can't live without him. He is a part of me. And people who would see them from the outside would think like, wouldn't it be easier for her if he was in a home? He has, by law, he was like, they said he has to be taken to home. He was so many challenges. She didn't see a man who had to be taken care of with challenges. She saw my other half. Who cares how hard it is to take care of him? He belongs with me. We belong together. And that was one of the things I learned from Brina, just seeing her and even like knowing her intimately, recognizing that she was devastated. She was hurt. She would never got angry, Brina. The only time that I ever heard that she got angry was when the people came to take forcibly her husband away because he needed so much care, and she was so angry at them and continued to be angry at them. Like they took away her other half. Until now, Chaim wants to come home. He just wanted to come home, even though they were taking care of him in a senior home. The entire time he was like, I belong with Brina. I belong with her. We're one. We belong with each other. And that was Yitzchak and Rivka, and also Avram and Sarah. It says that after this week's Parsha, after Sarah passes away, we always say like, where's Sarah in the whole story of the 10 tests? Rabbi Soloveitchik points out that all the 10 tests were only Avram and Sarah together. The minute Sarah passes away, Abraham's story in the Torah ends. We hear nothing else about him until later on in his life. We just mentioned in one pasuk that more things happened to him, but without Sarah, he was nothing. And that's what he says. All the 10 tests were, of course, Avram and Sarah as one. He was the soul, she was the body. They were one unit. There was no Sarah with Avram without Sarah, his whole being. And as soon as she passed away, Yitzchak takes over, and he has to find a new wife, and then he becomes the father because he needs a partner. They're not a whole until they have their other partner. And so the Rebbe smilingly told her to put aside the romantic notions from her literary involvement and view love and marriage in a meaningful way. And she did find her beloved, and they're married, Baruch Hashem. And I know some of her children. So it's such a beautiful portrayal of Yitzchak's wisdom to understand that mincha is finding meaning and calling and purpose and beauty and playfulness and newness and joy in the day-to-day. It's like I live in this I have this gorgeous view, and I promise myself I'll never take it for granted. If people come, they're like, I can't believe you live here. And I'm like, I know, and I forget to appreciate it. How could I forget to appreciate this incredible view, to take my breath away every single day? And that's what we should look at our partner every day from another view, from like pretend that, I'm meeting you for the first time, and how lucky am I to be living by your side, to have such a beloved partner, to have someone to live life with. So l'chaim, to having true love and to finding joy and meaning. Oh, and digging wells. Sorry, I forgot to say that. So the secret to this is digging wells. And Yitzchak's secret, all we know about Yitzchak's life is digging wells. And what does this mean? That often that love feels like it's gone. We have a relationship that's gone for so many years, and they feel, and heard this from so many people I'm close to, that there's just nothing there. We don't communicate anymore. There's no passion there. The love is gone. But Yitzchak teaches us that the reason that all the avos met their beloved at a well is because a well teaches us that the water is always there. If the water dries up or you feel like there's no water, you just have to dig and then find it. But it's there all along. And that's what the love. Sometimes the love feels like it's dried out. We don't love each other anymore. The love has faded, and we feel that way. And so many couples feel that. And if you feel that, you're not alone. I hear from so many people that there's just nothing left. And what Yitzchak is teaching us, that in the day-to-day mundane, you might feel like it's not there because it's the same thing every day. All you have to do is dig deeper and you'll uncover the water that was there all along. The love was there. Sometimes it gets covered over because we forget to date. Like we said in Elul, you have to you forget to spend that time to uncover that love, to get to know this. You think you know your spouse? You think you've been married for 30 years or 10 years or 20 years? There's so much more depth there to get to know. And we change. You're not the same person you were when you got married, and your spouse isn't either. And there's so much more to get to know. So go out and date. Pretend you're meeting someone for the first time and say, what's your favorite food? What's your favorite color? What's your dreams for life? What are your biggest regrets? What do you hope for yourself? What do you want to be remembered for after 180 years? If you could go anywhere in the world, start asking those questions to get to know each other. And that's digging the well. That's what digging down for water means. Digging deep and looking for that love, because that love is there. Sometimes it means looking at pictures and remembering that love and uncovering it. And sometimes it involves more digging, going away and spending some time together, taking a walk together, and going to those. Look up online 50 questions to 50. What is the New York Times 50 questions to fall in love with a stranger, by Esther Perl's book, which is called, I forget. Nice to meet you. I forget her books. Her card game. Get to know you game, or just look up questions to get to know each other. That's what digging is. Digging for that love that was always there. But the main thing is that the love is there. It might even be when Yitzchak, sometimes the well was so stuffed up that Yitzchak had to dig a new well. You'll have to that's what it means to redate. Discover from new. Be like, let's meet from brand new. Hi, nice to meet you. What do you care about? What means a lot to you? What is it that you're looking for? And really dig to get to know, and then you'll uncover the water and that love that is there. But sometimes there's so much that covers up, and a lot of times it's just not talking, and we bury things, we shove things under the rug. That's putting dirt on our well. Every time we don't say something, every time we feel something and we don't share it, every time we forget to get to know each other, we're putting more and more dirt covering up the love that's there. But the good thing is that there's always more water there. It's so easy. We just have to dig a little deeper. It's always there and it's always accessible. And that's what Yitzchak teaches us about uncovering wells. And that's what all of the avos met at wells. And that's the significance of Yaakov taking a rock off the well for Rachel. That's what love is. Love is taking off the things that we buried and threw under the rug and didn't talk about, and talking about those things in a safe space, and hearing and truly listening to what our partner is feeling, and to truly share from our heart and be able to not be afraid to share, to be vulnerable and open up. That's taking the rock off the well. Also, Moshe had to take the rock off the well for Sipporah when the shepherds came. There's so much significance in that. And taking the rock off the well means taking off the things that we put under the rug, all the things that we didn't share because we were afraid to be vulnerable, uncovering those things, taking off all the dirt, and then rediscovering that wealth of water of love and connection that's there underneath. And I really bless all of us to discover that connection, to have true love, and to find beauty and love in the day-to-day. L'chaim, thank you so much for joining. If you enjoyed this, share with your friends, and I'll see you next week.
Amazing.